Sometimes life leaves you in pieces. Sometimes it feels like the weight of what you've been through will never let you rise again. But let me tell you, don't you click away, don't you give up. Because the very place you were broken is the same place God will breathe life again. If you stay with me through this message, I believe you're going to see your story in a brand new light. We've all had seasons where brokenness was our only language, where our prayers felt unanswered, our hearts felt shattered, and our future looked dim. But that's not where the story ends. The same God who raised Jesus from the grave specializes in turning dead places into living testimonies. And today I want to remind you what looks finished isn't final when resurrection power is in the room. Maybe you've walked through a heartbreak that seemed too heavy to carry. Maybe you've lost something you thought you couldn't live without. Or maybe you've made mistakes that left you feeling unworthy. Yet, even in those ashes, God whispers, "I'm not done with you." The resurrection wasn't just an event in history. It's a power that moves through our lives every single day. The beauty of God's love is that He doesn't just fix the broken pieces. He transforms them into something greater. Brokenness doesn't disqualify you. It positions you for blessing. And every scar, every setback becomes a testimony of what His power can do. There are moments in life when brokenness feels like the final chapter. You sit in the middle of the wreckage, staring at the pieces of what used to be whole, and you convince yourself that nothing good can come from this place. The enemy whispers that your story is over, that your future has no pages left, and that you are stuck in the pain of your past. But hear me, brokenness is not the end. It is the soil where resurrection begins. When God looks at your broken pieces, He doesn't see an ending. He sees a stage being set for His glory to be revealed. The same way the tomb looked like the end for Jesus, your brokenness might look like the end for you. But just as the stone was rolled away, God has the power to roll away the heaviness that surrounds your situation. What you see as lifeless, He sees as preparation for new life. Sometimes we mistake brokenness as failure. We believe that if we were really strong enough, smart enough, or spiritual enough, we wouldn't have ended up shattered. But brokenness is not failure, it is formation. It is the place where God molds us, shapes us, and softens us so He can build something stronger than what was there before. You aren't falling apart for destruction, you're being reformed for destiny. Think about it, a seed has to break before it grows. Without the breaking, there would be no sprouting, no roots, no fruit. In the same way, your broken season is not wasted. It is making room for growth you can't see yet. God uses brokenness as the doorway to transformation. And just like a seed, what's coming out of you will look nothing like what went in. Your brokenness is a setup for resurrection power because it forces you to lean on a strength greater than your own. When you've run out of options, when you've exhausted your ability to fix yourself, that's when you discover the power of God holding you together. The same power that raised Jesus from the dead is alive in you, working in the background even when you don't feel it. If you look back over your life, you'll see that some of your greatest blessings came after your deepest breaking. You thought you wouldn't survive the heartbreak, but you did. You thought the betrayal would destroy you, but you're still standing. You thought the loss would leave you empty forever, but somehow joy found its way back in. That's not coincidence, that's resurrection power at work in you. And here's the truth, God doesn't just want to put the pieces back together. He wants to create something entirely new. Brokenness gives Him space to rebuild you in ways you never thought possible. He isn't interested in giving you the same life you had before the breaking. He's calling you into a life that's greater, richer, and stronger than anything you've ever known. So, if you're in a season of brokenness right now, don't call it the end. Call it the beginning. Call it preparation. Call it the setup for resurrection. Because when God steps into your broken places, He doesn't just repair, He resurrects. There's something powerful about realizing that God doesn't wait for us to get it all together before He shows up. He doesn't demand perfection as the entry ticket for His love. Instead, His grace steps right into the middle of our weakness, our confusion, our mess, and says, "I can work with this." That's the beauty of grace. It meets you exactly where you are. Not where you pretend to be. We live in a world that celebrates strength. People clap for the one who seems unshaken, unbothered, unbreakable. But the truth is, we all have cracks in our armor. We all have moments when we feel small, fragile, and incapable of holding it together. And it is in those very moments when we think we're too weak to keep going that God leans in the closest. His grace doesn't shame your weakness. It covers it. Think about Paul's words in 2 Corinthians, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." That means the very area of your life you've been trying to hide, the very place you've labeled as not enough, is the exact space where God's power wants to show up. You don't have to prove your worthiness for grace. Grace proves itself in the moments you feel most unworthy. God's grace doesn't just meet us, it carries us. Have you ever looked back on a season and wondered how you made it through? You were tired, broken, maybe even ready to give up, yet somehow you kept moving. That wasn't luck, and it wasn't you being stronger than you thought, it was grace. Grace picked you up when you couldn't lift yourself. Grace whispered hope when your heart was drowning in despair. Grace is the reason you didn't quit. The beauty of grace is that it doesn't just arrive once. It keeps showing up day after day, moment after moment. Every time you fall, it's there to lift you. Every time you stumble, it's there to steady you. Every time you cry, it's there to comfort you. Grace is not a one-time gift. It is an ever-present flow of God's love poured out over your life. And here's the part that takes the pressure off. You don't have to earn grace. You can't work hard enough, pray long enough, or live perfectly enough to deserve it. Grace is unmerited favor, which means it's given freely, not because of who you are, but because of who God is. Your weakness doesn't disqualify you from His love. It makes room for Him to reveal just how strong His love really is. When you finally let go of the need to be perfect, you'll realize that weakness isn't something to fear, it's something to surrender. Because every time you surrender your weakness, you're making space for God's strength. You're trading exhaustion for empowerment, insecurity for assurance, fear for faith. That's the exchange grace offers, and it's always available to you. So when you feel weak, don't hide it and don't despise it. Look at it as the meeting place of heaven and earth, where your humanity collides with God's divinity. Because in that sacred place, you'll discover that His grace isn't just enough, it's more than enough. There are seasons when life leaves us shattered. Dreams break apart, relationships fall apart, confidence fades. And sometimes even our faith feels like it's barely holding on. In those moments, it's easy to believe that what's broken will stay broken. But the truth is, we serve a God who specializes in restoration. He doesn't just fix things halfway. He rebuilds them in such a way that they become stronger than before. When something valuable breaks in our hands, our first instinct is often to throw it away. But God never looks at you and sees trash. He doesn't discard you because of your mistakes, your pain, or your failures. Instead, He picks up the pieces of your story and places them in His hands with care. To Him, your brokenness is not the end. It's the raw material for a new beginning. Sometimes restoration doesn't look like God giving back what you lost. It looks like Him giving you something better. That's why you can't measure your future by what's behind you. The relationship that ended, the opportunity that slipped away, the dream that felt like it died. God may not restore them in the exact way you imagined, but He will bring something into your life that proves His power is greater than your loss. Think about Job. He lost almost everything: family, wealth, health. Yet the Bible says that God restored him and gave him double for his trouble. That's the kind of restoration God brings. He doesn't just patch up the wound. He pours blessing into the very places where you once felt empty. Your scars may remain, but they become evidence of His healing, not reminders of your destruction. Restoration also takes time. We want instant healing, but God is patient, just as gold is refined in fire. Sometimes He allows us to walk through the process of rebuilding, so that when we step out on the other side, our faith is unshakable. Don't mistake the waiting season as God forgetting you. Often, the waiting is where He is quietly restoring you from the inside out. The beautiful thing about God's restoration is that it doesn't erase your past, it redeems it. The things you thought disqualified you are the very things He uses to display His glory. That heartbreak, that mistake, that failure, all of it becomes part of a story that points back to His grace. What once felt like shame becomes your testimony. Restoration also means God gives you back your voice. Pain tries to silence you. Shame tries to convince you to hide. But when God restores you, He gives you boldness again. You begin to speak from a place of victory instead of defeat. You begin to live with the confidence that what once broke you no longer defines you, it refined you. So even when life leaves you in pieces, remember this: God is not finished with you. His hands are steady, His love is deep, and His power is unmatched. He is the God who restores what life has broken, and He will do it for you. Pain has a way of making us feel hidden, isolated, and forgotten. When we go through heartbreak, loss, or disappointment, it's natural to want to cover it up, to pretend it never happened. But God never wastes pain. He takes what hurt you and transforms it into a platform, a place from which His glory can be revealed to the world. Sometimes we think our story disqualifies us. We believe, if people knew what I've been through, they would never listen to me. But it's often the very story you're ashamed of that God wants to use. The places where you've been broken are the same places He wants to shine His light. When you stand in front of others and say, This is what I went through, and this is how God brought me out. It shifts hearts in a way polished perfection never could. Think about it. Nobody relates to someone who has never been through anything. We connect to people's struggles more than we connect to their successes. And that's why your pain can't just stay hidden. When you testify about how God showed up in your darkest moments, you give others hope that He can do the same for them. Paul said in 2 Corinthians 12:9, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Did you catch that? God's power is perfected in our weakness, not in our strength. That means every tear you've cried, every night you couldn't sleep, every moment you felt like giving up, those are the very moments that become proof of His sustaining grace. Your pain also gives you credibility. You can't speak to healing if you've never been wounded. You can't speak to breakthrough if you've never felt broken. When you share from a place of lived experience, your words carry an authority that can't be faked. It's not theory, it's testimony. And testimony has the power to tear down strongholds and lift others out of despair. What the enemy meant to use to silence you, God will use to amplify you. That rejection, that trauma, that season of feeling overlooked, it becomes the stage from which God declares, "My child is still standing, and it's only because of my grace." People will look at you and wonder how you survived, and your answer will always point them back to Him. The beauty of pain turned into a platform is that it doesn't just bless others, it strengthens you too. Every time you share your story, you remind yourself that you didn't get through it on your own. You remember that God's hand carried you, and that reminder becomes fuel for your faith. Your scars become symbols of victory, not shame. So don't hide your story. Don't bury your pain as if it has no value. In God's hands, pain is transformed into purpose. It becomes a microphone for His glory, and your life becomes living proof that He truly works all things together for good. When God steps into your life to restore you, He doesn't just patch up the broken pieces. He doesn't just sweep the dust under the rug and leave you halfway healed. No, when God restores, He restores fully. He makes all things new. That means He doesn't simply return you to the state you were in before the storm. He elevates you, strengthens you, and shapes you into someone even stronger than before. Sometimes we settle for partial healing because we think that's all we deserve. We tell ourselves, if I can just get through this, I'll be okay. But God says, I didn't create you to just be okay. I created you to be whole, to be complete, to live in abundance. His restoration is not survival, it's revival. He doesn't just get you back on your feet. He teaches you to walk with confidence and purpose. Think of how God restored Job. He didn't just give him back what he lost, He doubled it. That's what God does. When you think your story is over, He writes another chapter that is more beautiful than the one before. When you think you've lost too much, He shows you that nothing is ever wasted in His hands. Restoration is not about replacing what was lost. It's about creating something new that carries His fingerprints all over it. This is why we cannot limit God's restoration to what we imagine. Sometimes we think, Lord, just fix this one part of my life, and I'll be fine. But God isn't interested in a quick fix. He's interested in transformation. He wants to heal the wound at the root, not just put a bandage on the symptoms. And that means He often restores us in places we didn't even know were broken. God's restoration also comes with renewal of the mind and spirit. You can be physically free but mentally bound. You can be outwardly blessed but inwardly broken. That's why His restoration penetrates deep, reshaping your thoughts, calming your fears, and renewing your hope. He takes the old mindset of defeat and replaces it with a bold confidence in His promises. And here's the powerful part. When God restores, He restores joy. He restores peace. He restores identity. He restores vision. Some of you thought the pain you endured stripped you of those things forever, but God says, I am the restorer of the years the locusts have eaten. What you thought was gone for good is not lost in His economy. You see, restoration with God is not just about repairing what was broken. It's about revealing what was hidden. Sometimes He allows the breaking because it uncovers a version of you that would have never been discovered without the storm. In His hands, the broken becomes the canvas for the beautiful, and the shattered becomes the foundation for something greater. So when you think about restoration, don't think small. Don't limit it to back to normal. God doesn't do normal, He does new. He doesn't restore you halfway. He makes you brand new. Every scar, every story, every season of struggle becomes part of the masterpiece He is creating in your life.